Padme confronting Anakin on Mustafar was one of the defining moments in his fall to the dark side. He pleaded with her to join him and wanted her to stand by his side in his journey for power. So what if Padme joined Anakin on Mustafar and became Empress? Before we begin, a quick shout out to the voice actors, Nick Cortez, the Shapeshifter, and Madeline Norton. Their links will be in the description. Let's start the story during Revenge of the Sith, when Padme confronts Anakin on Mustafar. Padme ran out of her ship into Anakin's arms, hoping to find the warm soul she had fallen in love with. But what she found was something else.
Anakin, what have you become?
Padme's voice trembled as her heart was torn between the man she loved and the darkness she sensed within him.
I've become stronger, Padme. I've done what had to be done. The Jedi, the Republic, they were corrupt. And you know that.
Padme shook her head.
But this isn't the way, Anakin. You've changed.
But Anakin took a step forward, wiping away Padme's tears as his hand gently cupped her cheek.
I did this for us. For you. For our child. Padme, don't you see? We can bring peace to the galaxy. True peace. The kind we dreamed of and talked about hundreds of times. No more Senate corruption. No more endless wars.
His eyes softened as she looked up, meeting his gaze, seeing the passion in Anakin's eyes that she was used to seeing.
We can build a new future. Together.
Padme's mind raced with what to do. The future Anakin describes is enticing. All she wants is peace for the galaxy and for her family to be safe. Maybe Anakin can provide that future.
Together? But how? Anakin, how can we live with ourselves knowing what you've done?
Anakin took both of her hands in his, holding them gently but firmly.
I didn't want to do it, Padme. But I did what I had to. The galaxy needed a new leader. Someone strong enough to tear down the broken systems. Padme, we can make it right. We can rule the galaxy. Just imagine it. You as Empress and me as Emperor, guiding a galaxy into an era of prosperity and peace.
Her breath caught at his words, Empress. Deep down she knew she should dismiss the word, but the power it offered latched to the redemption inside of her. Maybe Anakin is right. The system was flawed, and it had failed. Maybe it had to be destroyed, and Anakin had done this. Her husband had done what no one else was strong enough to do. The war had taken so much from them, and she had seen it firsthand. The corruption of the Senate, the inefficiency of the system. Anakin's path, dark as it was, offered something different, something better.
For our family. Think of the future we can give our child. No more fear, no more hiding. We can build a galaxy where our family thrives. Where we shape the future instead of being controlled by ideals of others.
Padme's eyes flickered with emotion. The idea of a future where she didn't have to hide her love was enticing, where their child could grow in safety and strength. Anakin's voice lowered, more tender and loving now, pleading to his wife.
You've always believed in diplomacy and fixing the system. But the system is too broken, Padme. You can't fix it from the inside. But we could reshape it, make it better. Not just for us, but for everyone.
She searched his face, seeing the desperation, the love, the belief in his words. Could she turn her back on him now, when all he wanted was the future they had once dreamed of? Could she deny the possibility that together they could make something better? Slowly Padme nodded.
For us, Anakin, for our family. If there's a way to bring peace, I'll join you.
Anakin's grip of Padme's hands tightened as they embraced.
We'll make this work, Padme. For us. For our child. Nothing will tear us apart.
Padme nodded.
I'm with you, Anakin. Always.
But the moment was interrupted by the distant sound of footsteps. Both turned to the source, the hiss of hydraulic doors slicing through the air as Obi-Wan Kenobi emerged from Padme's ship. Anakin's expression hardened in an instant. His hand instinctively moved towards his lightsaber.
Obi-Wan, you've come to kill me, haven't you?
Obi-Wan looked at Anakin, then Padme, a shadow of disbelief crossing his face.
Anakin, no. I came here to save you.
His voice slightly trembling as he turned towards Padme.
Padme, you're with him?
She stepped forward, pleading to Kenobi.
Obi-Wan, you don't understand. We can fix this. Anakin and I, together, we can bring peace to the galaxy. No more wars, no more suffering. We can end the chaos.
Obi-Wan looked at her in shock. The Padme she knew wouldn't say such a thing.
Padme, you can't be serious. You've seen what he's done. The path he has taken. You know where this leads.
I know, but I also know Anakin. He's not lost, Obi-Wan. He's trying to fix what's broken, just like we always dreamed. We can make things better together. You can join us.
Obi-Wan's face fell as he couldn't believe what he's hearing.
Padme, this isn't the way. The man you knew is gone. He's fallen too far into the dark side. You can't bring him back. Not like this.
Anakin's anger flared. His blue eyes turned stormy, his hand gripping the hilt of his saber.
Don't talk to her like that. You never understood me, Obi-Wan. You never believed in my potential.
Obi-Wan met his sharp gaze, not backing down.
Anakin, I did believe in you, but you've chosen the wrong path. The darkness has consumed you. I can't let you continue down this road. Oh, you're going to kill me? I'd like to see you try. If you're not with me, then you're against me.
Anakin ignited his lightsaber, and Kenobi did in response.
No, Anakin. I'm going to free you.
Anakin lunged as their lightsabers clashed, the sheer force of the blow sending sparks scattering across the ground. Anakin's attacks were brutal, driven by his newfound resolve, his love for Padme, their child, and the future they have envisioned. Obi-Wan struggled to keep up, his defenses precise, but weakening against Anakin's relentless attacks.
You've always held me back, Obi-Wan!
Anakin yelled as they fought over the Mustafar lava.
I was trying to save you from yourself!
But Anakin was past reasoning. His strikes became faster, more furious, fueled by his anger and love in equal measure. His every move is sharper and stronger. Obi-Wan, despite his skill, was driven back, barely managing to block each strike. He was losing. Anakin's determination was too strong. In a desperate move, he switched from his defensive stance and swung his saber upward, aiming for Anakin's torso. But Skywalker was quicker. He sidestepped the strike and spun, bringing his saber down, cutting through Kenobi's saber, sending it clattering to the ground. Obi-Wan staggered back, his chest heaving with fatigue, but it was too late. Anakin had pounced, his lightsaber piercing Obi-Wan's chest as he fell to his knees. Anakin deactivated his lightsaber, standing over Obi-Wan, his breathing slowing.
Anakin, don't let this consume you.
And then he was gone. Anakin rushed back to Padme, her hand over her mouth.
It's done. Nothing can stand in our way.
She sobbed, a tear running down her face. She cared deeply for Obi-Wan, but knew he would only be an obstacle in their path for peace. Anakin and Padme looked up as they heard a ship overhead, and this could only be one man, Palpatine. The shuttle's ramp lowered as the unmistakable figure of the Emperor descended. He stepped forward as he walked towards Anakin, casting a slight hint of distaste towards seeing Padme. He would deal with her later.
Lord Vader, you have done well. You have brought peace to your troubled mind, eliminated your greatest enemy, and secured your destiny.
Anakin's gaze darkened as the Emperor approached. These words, once meant to be reassuring, now felt hollow and manipulative. Anakin had felt a growing sense of clarity after killing Obi-Wan, the realization that he had become more powerful than ever, not because of the darkness, but because of his love for Padme and their child. His mind was free now, and he saw Palpatine for what he truly was, a master manipulator, one who's orchestrated everything. Palpatine continued, unaware of the shift in Anakin's heart.
Together, Lord Vader, we shall rule the galaxy. The Jedi are at last no more, and soon the Senate...
Anakin acted in a flash, using the speed of his youth and newfound power that surprised even Palpatine. He had ignited his lightsaber and plunged it deep into the Emperor's chest.
You are no master of mine.
Anakin spits at him as Palpatine's eyes widened in shock, but life was leaving him as he crumpled to the ground lifeless, his dark yet short reign coming to an end. Padme stepped forward, meeting Anakin's gaze.
You've done it, Anakin. With Palpatine dead, the Empire is ours.
Together they journeyed back to Coruscant as their shuttle approaches the new Imperial Senate. They were in session, awaiting for Palpatine to address them, but they would soon be surprised. The Senate and all Imperial forces needed to understand a new era had begun. Mas Amedda addressed the Senate.
Please welcome Emperor Palpatine.
The doors of the chambers flew open as Anakin and Padme walked in, their presence commanding attention from every senator who dared to raise their eyes. Gasps echoed throughout the chamber as the senators recognized the two figures standing before them.
Skywalker? Amidala? What is the meaning of this?
But Anakin crushes Amida's windpipe with the Force, and he gasped for air and forced him aside so Anakin could take the center stage.
Palpatine is dead. He betrayed the Republic, twisted it into his own personal empire, and led us all into ruin. But today, we rise from the ashes of his corruption.
The Senate fell silent, hanging on his every word.
I am your new Emperor, and alongside me, your Empress Padme Amidala. Together we will bring true peace, justice, and order to the galaxy. The Empire will be reformed, not through fear, but through strength.
Padme stepped forward, her voice calm yet firm.
The Senate will continue to function, but under a new mandate. One that serves the people of the galaxy, not the interests of a corrupt few. We will rebuild together. We will create a galaxy where our children and their children can live free of war.
The senators exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what to say, unsure of how to respond, but they had no choice. The power shift had already happened, and the new Emperor and Empress stood before them. Their friends Mon Mothma and Bail Organa couldn't believe the change that had occurred, but there was nothing they could do. Anakin and Padme had secured the clone army, and power was theirs.
As of today, Padme, the Empire belongs to us.
The chamber remained in stunned silence, but Anakin knew that soon, the galaxy would fall in line. Hey guys, just a quick reminder, today is our Black Friday sale over at Fantasy Sabers, where with each order, we're giving away a free mystery saber, any from our collection chosen at random. There's also up to 50% off store-wide and free international shipping. Check out our NeoPixel replicas as well as an extensive Padawan NeoPixel saber range. The sale runs all weekend, is the first link in the description. Now back to the video. The main difference between Anakin and Palpatine in their rule was clear, where Palpatine focused on long-term schemes, contingency plans, and a distant future. Anakin lived in the present. He was determined to establish order in the galaxy, not by creating fear, but by enforcing discipline and crushing opposition immediately. While Palpatine had focused on the Death Star and secret plans to maintain control, Anakin was concerned with stomping out the remaining Jedi and securing his empire. Padme played an important role as Empress. Where Anakin ruled through strength, she ruled through diplomacy and persuasion. She was the face of the Empire's reform policies, ensuring that the planets loyal to the Empire were granted the resources they needed to prosper under Imperial rule. Using her political acumen, she reformed the Senate, which still remained under the Empire, to hear out grievances and administer the Empire's decisions. However, the Senate no longer had the power to influence the Emperor's rule. Padme acted as the intermediary between Anakin and the Senate, a critical link that maintained a sense of stability and legitimacy of the Empire. Anakin, who had gotten along well with the clones during the Clone War, commissioned the Kaminoans to continue their production, creating a new wave of soldiers to serve as the galactic police force. These clones, lacking the individuality of the original units, were utterly loyal and served as the enforcers of Imperial law. It was Padme's diplomacy and public presence that allowed the galaxy to accept this shift. Planets were occupied by the clones to maintain order, and whenever resistance arose, Anakin enforced the occupation with swift and decisive action. Shortly after his declaration as Emperor, a former temple guard approached Anakin, confessing that he had been working alongside Palpatine, but now wished to serve the new Emperor. Anakin accepted his loyalty and appointed him as the Grand Inquisitor, tasked with leading the Inquisitorius in hunting down the remaining Jedi. Sate Pistage, a Palpatine loyalist, defected to Anakin's side and revealed a hidden facility on Ferrix, where Palpatine had been training Force sensitives in the dark side. Anakin traveled to this facility, where he met the first batch of Inquisitors trained by Sidious. With the Grand Inquisitor in command, Anakin used these dark side users to track down and eliminate the last remnants of the Jedi Order. For the next 5 years, Anakin trained intensely in the dark side of the Force to increase his overall power, whilst ensuring control over the Empire. Despite Anakin's dominance, Padme was seen as the benevolent face of the Empire. Her presence ensured many worlds complied without the need for brutal force. Still, when compliance failed, the clones occupied and resistance was crushed. During these years, Anakin's power in the Force grew exponentially. He studied ancient Sith Force holocrons and scrolls from the restricted section in the Jedi archives. He mastered Force lightning, capable of incinerating an opponent entirely, and developed the ability to use Force drain, stealing life energy from enemies. In battle, Anakin could manipulate the Force to such a high degree, to the point where he could fly for short periods of time, a skill that made him unstoppable. However, his greatest strength came from his ability to see the future, which through time and training, he could start to use at will, but only for short periods of time, which allowed Anakin to locate and eliminate the Empire's most dangerous enemies, including Master Yoda. Anakin's vision revealed Yoda's location on Dagobah, where the two engaged in a fierce duel. Ultimately, Anakin's darkside power overwhelmed the aging Grand Master, and Yoda was slain. During this time, Padme remained devoted to her role as Empress. She also spearheaded initiatives to reform education, healthcare, and infrastructure across the Empire, branding it as an era of prosperity and peace. Anakin, whilst embracing the dark side, did not completely forsake the light. He saw mirror in both sides of the Force, and taught his children, Luke and Leia, to use both. Luke and Leia grew into powerful Force users under his tutelage, each developing their own unique specialties. Luke was a master with the lightsaber, so skilled that he could almost best his father in combat. Leia, on the other hand, developed an affinity for Sith alchemy and magic, mastering techniques that allowed her to manipulate the Force in ways few others could. For the next 15 years, Anakin focused on expanding and solidifying his empire, with the Jedi eradicated and the galaxy firmly under his control. His focus turned to securing the Outer Rim and venturing into the unknown regions. The Empire's military became the most powerful force the galaxy had ever seen. Mas Amedda, who loyally served Anakin, informed him of Palpatine's Death Star project. Anakin had initially put the plans on hold, prioritizing the destruction of the Jedi, but once this was successful, he continued its production. Once the project was complete, he decided to test the weapon on his home planet, Tatooine, to completely eradicate the pain from his past. The destruction of Tatooine would send a clear message to the galaxy. Defiance of the Empire would not be tolerated. This act of power, though brutal, was justified by Padme in official statements as a necessary step to protect the galaxy from rebellion. It reinforced their control over the Outer Rims and allowed them to gather more resources to build additional Death Stars. In the next 20 years, the Empire continued to grow, with Luke and Leia taking more prominent roles. Each fell in love with Inquisitors, trained by Anakin in the Inquisitorius program, and they started families of their own, continuing the Skywalker legacy. By this time, the Empire was stronger than ever, with the Inquisitorius essentially acting as Dark Jedi, now numbering in the hundreds, all loyal to the Emperor and Empress. Through the balance of Anakin's power and Padme's influence, the galaxy entered an era of stability. Anakin had become the most powerful Force user in history, and with his family by his side, there was no force in the galaxy that could oppose them. Padme, as Empress, ensured that while the Empire ruled in strength, it also appeared as a beacon of progress and prosperity. Together they achieved ultimate balance of power and control, securing their legacy for generations to come. But during this time, Anakin studied the midichlorians intensely as he raided Palpatine's stash of Sith artifacts and journals to find the Journal of Darth Plagueis. He read intensely through Plagueis' life and the thousands of experiments he conducted on the midichlorians, his successes, his failures, and even read about the experiment that Plagueis conducted with Palpatine, where they delved deep into the dark side, focusing on the midichlorians, to the point where they attempted to create life with the dark side. But Plagueis reports his failures, that he felt the Force becoming quiet to his probing. But what astonished Anakin was the date of this experiment, his birthday. This couldn't be a coincidence, but the weight of this realization was intense. Plagueis was his father. He was created because of him, because of his experiments with the dark side. Anakin continued to study Plagueis' journals and train on his connection to the midichlorians, to the point where he became a master of them, far more than Plagueis ever was. He could control anyone's, including his own, at will, and had finally had the power to save everyone he cared about from death, and could use this to prolong his life and those around him. For the next 100 years, their control over the galaxy was unchallenged, and after Anakin discovered the secret to immortality through the midichlorians, he and his family essentially stopped aging. He used it to keep himself and Padme youthful in their age, ensuring their love would endure forever. The galaxy under their iron grip was finally at peace. Order had been imposed on every corner of the galaxy, and even the mighty Yuzong Vong invaders 50 years prior, with their terrifying biotechnology, stood no chance against the Skywalker dynasty. Over the century, Anakin and Padme had expanded their family. They had more children, who in turn had their own children and eventually grandchildren. Each branch of the Skywalker family was entrusted with governing key regions of the galaxy. The most powerful of Anakin's children, Luke and Leia, became central to their empire. Luke was given control of the Outer Rim, and Leia governed the unknown regions, which they had tamed 60 years prior. Each system was equipped with their own Death Star, as a symbol of the Skywalker's absolute power and control. But with this dominance over the galaxy came an unintended consequence, a shift in the balance of the Force. For over a century, the Skywalker dynasty's dominance over the dark side had created an imbalance. This shift reverberated throughout the galaxy, and in the deep corners of the Force, something ancient stirred. A forgotten relic of the past. She had once been the mother, a powerful entity, steeped in the dark side and extremely powerful. She remained trapped in her prison, called the Maw, and managed to escape her prison whenever the current of the Force is altered. And each time she escaped, the son and the daughter would return to the physical galaxy and defeat Abaloth to put her back in prison, and the cycle would repeat itself. However, during the Clone War, the son and daughter were killed, and Anakin refused to take the father's place as the keeper of balance, and now Abaloth had been unintentionally released. Abaloth traveled the galaxy, taking in the state of the Skywalker Empire and the domain in which she had to destroy and take over. She knew the Emperor Anakin was extremely powerful and would even rival her own power. However, she had a plan to break down the Emperor and defeat him, and would start with his daughter. At first, Abaloth's voice was barely perceivable, a soft whisper at the edges of Leia's mind. She spoke to her in half-truths, sowing seeds of doubt and ambition in her mind. Leia had always been powerful and a skilled practitioner of Sith alchemy and magic, but Abaloth offered something more, true power of the chaotic essence of the Force. Leia felt pulled to the voice in her head, tempted by the power it offered, only natural for a student of the dark side, until she demands the Force to reveal their identity. Leia was deep in meditation when she asked, and this was her mistake. In this moment of vulnerability, deep within her meditation chambers on the Death Star, Abaloth struck, seizing control of Leia's mind, a power in which she had an immense skill in, and turned Leia into a puppet of her dark will. The Emperor and Empress's daughter, now under Abaloth's control. However, she couldn't control her mind for long, and had to move quickly. Together, Leia and Abaloth traveled to the Outer Rim to find Luke, who greeted his sister, unaware of her fall to Abaloth's control. Abaloth hid in the shadows, and they pounced at once, unleashing the combination of their power as they subdued Luke and knocked him unconscious, as Abaloth took over Luke's mind. With both siblings now under her control, Abaloth took them both to the Beyond Shadows, a realm of the Force only accessible to few. They traveled to Abaloth's cave, and she put Luke and Leia in the pool of knowledge, forcing them to drink in the font of power. She watched as they began to transform, the power of the dark side energy surging through them. They were the descendants of the dark side, and the perfect vessels of her creation. She could feel their hearts changing, poisoned by the cursed energy as they rose from the pool.
Come, my children. You are no longer Skywalkers, but now you will be my son and daughter, bound to me for eternity.
Their transition was complete, as Luke exited first, a complete image of the dark side, and Leia next, a complete image of the light.
With you by my side, my reign of chaos will spread across the galaxy. Together, we will bring the Force to its knees.
Luke and Leia, with their minds twisted, had no choice but to follow Abaloth's commands, and she began setting her plan in motion to take over the galaxy. The galaxy was thrown into chaos. Abaloth, with Luke and Leia firmly under her control, had wasted no time in seizing commands of their vast fleets. The Outer Rim and the unknown regions now became launching points for brutal assaults on the rest of the family's domain. The fleets of Luke and Leia's ships rained destruction upon the galaxy, and Anakin's imperial throne on Mustafar. He stood on the edge of the volcanic platform, his eyes deep in meditation, after he heard news of Luke and Leia's fleets attacking the rest of his family. Questions raised deep in his mind. Why did they do this? Have they decided to turn their forces against him? Do they want his empire for themselves? Anakin's curiosity raised. Maybe the pull of the dark side had become too strong for them, but he'll have answers, as he used the Force during his meditation to provide him an image of Luke and Leia. But they were not as they seemed. They were changed. Their eyes burned with unnatural light, their faces twisted by Abaloth's control. He saw them bowing to her, their power warped into something far darker than he had ever imagined. Abaloth's laughter echoed in his mind, sending a tremor through his connection to the Force. Anakin's eyes snapped open, his breath steady, but the rage simmering beneath the surface. He turned as Padme entered the chamber.
What did you see?
They've fallen. This Abaloth has them. She turned Luke and Leia into her weapons, and now they're attacking the Empire.
Padme's heart sank, but she refused to show weakness.
You can turn them back, Anakin. You have to. They're our children.
Abaloth's influence runs deep. This isn't about turning them back. This is war.
Padme stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest.
Whatever it takes, Anakin. I know you can do this.
Anakin nodded.
I will bring them back, Padme. I promise you.
He travels to his command room and stands around the center hollow table, the blue flickering light illuminating a map of the galaxy. The Imperial fleets were already rallying in response to the sudden attacks from Luke and Leia, and for the next couple of days, Anakin coordinated the response to every member of his family. However, disturbing reports began to fill in. Members of his family were defecting to Abaloth's side. Some of Anakin's grandchildren and their cousins had split from his empire. Some, driven by ambition of Abaloth's promises of greater power, joined their forces. These defectors believed that Abaloth's power could surpass Anakin, and together they sought out a new reign of power, one where they, instead of their father, had a chance to wield ultimate power. The Skywalker Civil War had begun. Across the galaxy, battles raged. Cousins turned against cousins, brothers clashed with sisters, and the very dynasty that had once ruled in unison now tore itself apart. Entire systems were engulfed in war as the vast fleets of the Skywalkers engaged one another. Abaloth kept herself and Luke and Leia hidden, carefully orchestrating the chaos from the shadows. She avoided any confrontation with Anakin, knowing full well that even with her power, she could not yet face him one-on-one. She manipulated the war from the shadows, driving wedges between family members, feeding their ambitions and promises of power that she will never give them. The war lasted for weeks, and many members of Anakin's family were killed, planets destroyed by Death Stars, and entire fleets of warships wiped out. Abaloth manipulated the events of the war, steering her forces towards Mustafar, knowing that if they destroy the heart of Anakin's empire, his throne room on Mustafar, the rest of his family will see his weakness and defect to their side. However, Anakin will not give up Mustafar, and Abaloth knows she will have to attack him directly. But with Luke and Leia by her side, Abaloth believes they will have the power to defeat him. Anakin was meditating in his chamber as he saw the future through the Force, an invasion of Mustafar, and he geared into defense immediately. He could feel the gathering storm in the Force as above the planet, the Empire's fleet gathered to meet Luke and Leia's incoming armada. Star Destroyers and Dreadnoughts were primed for battle, ready to unleash their power, but Anakin knew this battle would decide the fate of the war, and he had something hidden under his sleeve. Padme walks in and stands by Anakin's side as they watch the space above.
You know they'll come for you, my love.
I know, and I'll be ready.
The moment had come. Abaloth, Luke and Leia descended towards Mustafar as their combined fleet engaged the Empire's defenses in battle. They boarded a separate sleek shuttle and headed towards the surface of the planet, and Abaloth smiled as she gazed at the molten surface of Mustafar.
Come, my children. It's time to end the reign of your father. His age is over, and ours is just beginning.
Luke and Leia stood silent and obedient as they followed her down the ramp as they descended onto the surface of Mustafar, the same site where Anakin had killed Obi-Wan and Palpatine 100 years ago. They approached Anakin's castle as he stood at the surface.
Have you come to take my empire from me, Abaloth?
The Force will be mine, Skywalker, and you will pay for what you did to my family.
They were weak, and I will destroy you as I destroyed them.
The battle erupted, as they moved in a flash. Luke and Leia igniting their blades, and Anakin did in response, brandishing 2 blades to defend against multiple attackers. Abaloth attempts to attack Anakin's mind, to break the barrier he's placed within, to affect his control of the Force. Anakin unleashes every form of lightsaber combat, and even after 100 years, he was still the best in the galaxy. He put Luke and Leia on the back foot immediately, his strikes intensely strong, and it seemed he might be overpowering them. But Abaloth is successful in cracking Anakin's mind, as his vision begins to flash with images of Tatooine, of his mother, and how he failed her in the past. Anakin manages to maintain control, however the flashes of the past have affected his assault, forcing him to take a defensive stance. He cracked lightning at Abaloth, connecting with her, as she breaks the connection to his mind, and Anakin defends against the onslaught from Luke and Leia. He takes a step back and begins using Force Drain, siphoning the Force essence from Luke and Leia and pouring it into his power as he activates Force Flight, controlling his trajectory with precision, and uses aerial combat to outmaneuver his children. But Abaloth rejoins the battle, and Anakin had thought he had to put up the defense in his mind back up, but he had underestimated Abaloth's power as she cracked his defenses, and his true mother returns to his mind. Another vision, but this time she's more real and speaks to him directly.
Anakin, come to me, my baby boy. Come to your mother.
Anakin's drawn in. His mother is the only thing missing from his life. He walks towards her, going to embrace her, which would result in his certain death. But he sees a flicker of light in her eyes, a flicker of Abaloth's control, as he slashes with his lightsaber, dissipating the vision, as he defends against the 3-on-1, and Abaloth's attempts had almost cracked his mind and broke through his defenses. Anakin has to take another route and begins activating Force Severance as he attaches with a deep connection to his children's mind. Instead of overpowering them physically, he would simply overpower their minds. He deactivated his lightsaber and focused his Force essence into them, while simultaneously using his acrobatics and Force sight to dodge their attacks. He speaks into their minds through the Force, using Force empathy to find the remnant of their true selves buried deep within Abaloth's control. He cracks the surface as Abaloth feels it and doubles her efforts, but Anakin sets into place a memory projection, a Force ability, showing Luke and Leia images of their pasts, moments of love, family, and unity. He would appeal to the emotions of Padme, filling them with his own love he feels for her, reaching to their soul deep within their bodies, as they grasp on, as they connected with their father, and successfully break free from Abaloth's connection, overpowering the ancient power of the Font of Power.
No! It's impossible!
The eyes of Luke and Leia return, as Anakin can sense they have come back to them. Anakin grabs hold of them as they fall unconscious with the weight of what have just transpired. He puts them down and stands to face Abaloth.
It does not matter, Skywalker. I am still a god, and you, a mere mortal with no means to kill me.
Anakin stands determined as he reaches behind him and grasps the ancient metal that is kept hidden in the shadows.
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
As Anakin unsheathes the secret sword, the dagger of Mortis, that has the power to defeat a god of the Force.
It can't be! It was destroyed!
The blade was never destroyed, but Mortis was. However, the chosen one I am, and connected to Mortis I will always be, and waiting for me was exactly what I desired.
Abaloth locked in, but darted for her ship, knowing there is no way she can defeat Anakin with the dagger. But Anakin essentially teleported, moving so fast in front of Abaloth as she ran directly into him, and Anakin started swinging and pulled Abaloth in with the Force and thrusted the dagger of Mortis through her. She screamed a devilish scream, and once and for all, after tens of thousands of years of tyranny, Abaloth had been defeated. Anakin rushes over to his children and pulls them awake as they're ecstatic to see their father, and deep down, they always hoped he would be the one to save them. Padme joined and they all hugged, happy they were together once again. Luke and Leia sent commands to their forces above the planet and proclaimed that the war is over and they stop attacking. Luke and Leia each brought their forces back to where they were meant to be, the Outer Rim and unknown regions. However, the rest of the Skywalker family that joined Abaloth were confused as to why Luke and Leia gave up on the conquest and returned to their homes. But they would find the answers very soon, as the entirety of the Skywalker family was summoned to Leia's palace on Silla, and the members of the Skywalker family that betrayed Anakin entered the throne room to see Anakin sitting in the center throne, with Padme, Luke, Leia, and the rest of their children sitting by his side, as well as every member of their family standing in the audience, looking at them. They had no choice but to enter, and walked up towards Anakin, taking a knee. Anakin's gaze swept over them, his expression cold and unremarkable. He rose from the throne, his black cloak trailing behind him as he stepped forward.
You come before me now, pleading for forgiveness after betraying your own blood.
His eyes narrowed, glowing yellow with the dark side.
You turned against me, against our family. And for what? Power? Ambition?
One of the traitors, a son of Luke, dared to raise his head.
We believed Abaloth would lead us to a new future. We were deceived. Please, we were wrong. Give us a chance to make amends.
Anakin's gaze turned to him, and for a moment, there was silence. Then his voice came, colder than the ice outside.
A chance?
He stepped closer to the kneeling group, his presence overwhelming.
You had your chance when you were born into this family. You had your chance when you swore loyalty to me. But instead, you chose treachery. You turned against everything we built. Everything we fought for.
The traitors trembled, some bowing their heads lower in shame, others too afraid to speak. Padme watched from her seat, kept her gaze steady on her husband, her heart heavy. She hoped somewhere deep inside that perhaps he might show mercy, but she knew better. She understood what needed to be done. Anakin's eyes darkened as he looked down at his fallen family members.
I gave you the galaxy. I gave you power beyond your wildest dreams, and you threw it away for an illusion. You chose to betray the Skywalker name.
The room seemed to tremble as the Force responded to Anakin's rising fury. He raised his hand slowly, fingers curling into a tight fist. The traitors gasped in unison, eyes widening in horror as they realized what was about to happen. Some began to plead, voices trembling.
Lord Anakin, please. We were honestly misled.
But Anakin's hand remained firm, and with a flick of his wrist, the Force wrapped itself around their throats. Their voices were cut off, replaced by the sound of choking gasps as they struggled for breath. Slowly, Anakin tightened his grip, feeling the life drain from each of them. The traitors' eyes bulged, their hands clawing at their throats, but there was no escape. Luke and Leia watched silently from their thrones, expressions unreadable. They too had known that this was the only possible outcome. The traitors had turned their backs on the family, on everything their father had built, and now they were paying the price. Anakin released his grip, his eyes falling to his side. The room was silent once more, except for the soft hum of the Force around him. He spoke to his entire family.
Let this be a lesson. The Skywalker name will never be tainted by weakness or betrayal again.
He turned and walked back to his throne, his cloak billowing behind him as he resumed his seat. Padme, Luke, Leia, and the rest of the family looked on, united once again in their dominance over the galaxy. The traitors had been dealt with, and with that, peace returned to the Empire. An unshakable, unbreakable peace, forged in loyalty, fear, and the iron will of the Chosen One. If you enjoyed this video, you have to watch what if Padme was a Sith Lord, or what if Anakin was granted the rank of Master. Don't forget to check out Fantasy Sabers, and specifically our Black Friday sale, where if you buy one saber, you get a free mystery saber, one with every order. Like and subscribe to the video, and may the Force be with you.